crypto assets are taxable in the UK, both for individuals and for businesses. The regulations on crypto tax came in 2018 for individuals and 2019 for businesses. And so in this video, I'm going to talk you through how crypto is currently taxed in the UK as it stands in 2022. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you know next time I upload a video about all things business money. I am Annette Ferguson, Chartered Accountant and Certified Profit First Professional. I also run Annette Co, a UK-based accounting firm. The first thing to note is that the tax on crypto assets in the UK is continuously evolving. Therefore, this advice may become outdated. So make sure that you check with a professional on the most up-to-date and relevant advice for you if you are looking at crypto assets. However, we are recording this as at April 2022. Therefore, if you're watching sometime shortly after that, then the advice and tax information that we are giving will be relevant. In the vast majority of cases, individuals are typically holding crypto assets for their capital appreciation, meaning for their increase in value, and then they will sell them at some future point in time and make a gain on that transaction. In that situation, crypto assets are treated as any other asset that you might hold for that purpose, like stocks and shares, for example, and is therefore subject to capital gains tax. Capital gains tax, of course, only comes in on the disposal of an asset. That means if you purchase crypto assets and then you hold them indefinitely, at no point will you have a tax charge until you come to sell that asset. At that point, it is your gain that is realized, as it were, and at that point, tax is payable on the gain. There are a couple of situations, however, where crypto assets held by individuals are taxed under income tax and national insurance and not under capital gains tax. That happens when someone receives crypto assets from their employer by the way of a non-cash payment, or when someone receives mining, transaction confirmations, or airdrops. In those situations, it is income tax and national insurance that applies and not capital gains tax. There may also be situations where an individual is carrying on a business which is carrying on the trade of crypto assets. In that situation, income tax will also apply and not capital gains tax. It's only in exceptional circumstances that HMRC expect individuals to buy and sell exchange tokens with such frequency, level of organization, and sophistication that the activity amounts to a financial trade itself. If the taxpayer is deemed therefore to be trading, again it would be income tax that applies there and not capital gains tax. So when a crypto asset is sold, the gain needs to be calculated. However, of course, it's not always bought and sold and converted into pound sterling, which is what you're required to report in when it comes to your UK tax return. That means for the purposes of submitting your self-assessment, the gain needs to be converted into pound sterling. If the transaction itself doesn't have an appropriate pound sterling rate, for example, let's say you sell Bitcoin and buy ETH, then you need to use the rate as at that time to calculate your gain on your Bitcoin that you've just sold so that you can reflect that gain into your tax calculations. What that means is that you do not necessarily have to convert your crypto assets into a fiat currency to pay tax on it. If you convert one crypto asset into another crypto asset, at that point there is a gain that is locked in, and that is the point where tax then becomes chargeable on the gain. The onus is on the individual to keep records of all their crypto transactions. You need to keep records of the date they happened, the types of coins that you are buying and selling or transferring, the prices at which you buy and sell, the amount of the asset which you buy and sell. All these records are required to be kept because they are legally required to back up your tax return and your tax information that you submit to HMRC. you need to be able to prove the transactions happened, and therefore you may need to take downloads from your crypto wallet in order to have the proof of the transactions. But be aware that crypto asset exchanges do not have to keep this information on file for extended periods of time. So you do need to make sure you get this data out before it becomes time that you need to prove it or submit it on a tax return. That means you need to keep up to date with this information and not let it just roll on and get to the point where you prepare your tax return and not be able to access it. It's also important to note that crypto assets are treated as property for the purposes of inheritance tax. And since HMRC does not deem crypto assets to be currency or money, they cannot be used to pay a tax relievable pension contribution into a registered pension scheme. You can nevertheless put money into, or crypto assets rather, into a registered pension scheme, but you won't receive the tax relief for doing that. With the gains in crypto assets being subject usually to capital gains tax, that means you can make use of your capital gains allowance. Now, you may have used your capital gains allowance for other gains, in which case there's not a separate one for crypto assets, but the current capital gains allowance is £12,300 for the tax year 22-23. That means you can make gains up to that amount, and you don't actually need to declare those gains because they are covered by the allowance. If you make gains over and above that, the easiest way to declare those gains to HMRC is by completing your self-assessment personal tax return on a yearly basis. This is due by the 31st of January every year. The tax rate you pay will depend on the taxed band that you are in. You'll pay 10% on your gains if you're within the basic rate band, and you'll pay 20% on any amounts above the basic rate tax band. If you're getting value from this video, do make sure that you hit that like button. Now let's look at how HMRC tax crypto assets for businesses, including sole traders and partnerships. If a company is buying and selling tokens, mining tokens, or receiving tokens in lieu of receiving cash for payments of goods and services, then the company will have to pay tax on that income. The taxes that the business may be liable to as a result can be capital gains tax, income tax, corporation tax, even VAT. And the amount of tax will depend on the income, expenditure, profit, and gains of the business. They must be declared annually to HMRC either through a self-assessment tax return if you're a sole trader or partnership, or a company tax return for companies. And HMRC will typically apply the relevant legislation and tax laws to determine which taxes are applicable. As with the holding of crypto assets for personal purposes, the holding for business purposes also has to get transferred into pound sterling to be reported. So any gains in the same way get submitted to HMRC as a pound sterling. Typically for businesses, we look at the generally accepted accounting principles to work out what tax is applicable. So for example, if a business is receiving a crypto asset as a payment for a good or service, then typically that gain is going to be treated as revenue for the business. The money that is received, the equivalent sterling amount, is going to be treated as revenue in the business. And if the business is VAT registered, VAT will be payable on that as well. The rules that we also previously discussed in relation to trading as an individual also apply to business as well. And typically HMRC's taxes really depend on what the holder of the crypto asset is doing with that asset. Are they holding it for investment? Are they using it as a way of making and receiving payments? Or are they trading? And whichever answer falls out will typically then determine which taxes are applicable to that crypto asset. If you are struggling with accounting for your business, I would love to support you. Drop me an email to yt@annetteco.co.uk and let me know how I can help. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it.